What's going on out there? Oh. Dragon City. Huh?
This video has been sponsored today by Dragon City.
Hello.
A game you can download for free on iOS and Android that lets you collect dragons.
What?
Do you want a dragon? Well, you can have one now. I've got over 300 of them with tons more left to find. What have you got?
Nothing!
Unless you head to my special link in the description below to check the game out now yourself. Do you want a game that lets you fight these dragons in different PvP matches in online leagues or an arena? Do you want a game that lets you breed different species of dragons to complete your collection? Do you want a game that lets you find friends? You can't do that in real life, but Swiggity Sweetbook, link it to Facebook and you can find some friends to battle with. Fun fact, dragons can generate gold that you can then use to buy them food, which upgrades their attack power and strength. And then you can watch numbers go up. And if you're really good at the game, you can enter new events every single week, which can hoard you crazy amounts of stuff. Who needs food in real life? I don't! I've got so much food in Dragon City, I even share it with my dog.
Eat it!
Too lazy and have no attention span?
What?
You can even let the game fight for you with an auto battle mode to save you all the time and energy you need to sit down and then send more dragons off on quests to unlock new buildings. See? You don't just get dragons, you get buildings as well! Want to get some buildings for yourself? Then once again, head to the description below to download the game today. Every download helps support this channel, so thank you so much if you decide to do that, and thank you so much to Dragon City for sponsoring this video.
What in the goddamn have I got myself into? Hey everybody, and welcome to the start of year 2 of my annual Bandicoot month, where every single June I just talk about Crash, because that's when the Insane Trilogy came out. It's my birthday month. That is when, funnily enough, Nitro Fueled is coming out as well. I think just June is a very Bandicoot-esque month. And speaking of Bandicoot-esque, you can't get much more Bandicoot-esque than today's video, because we are indeed going to be making a tier list, and of anything in particular, yes, thank you for asking. We're going to be talking about Crash Bandicoot's butthole. You know what, I was feeling like a laugh, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to take every single model of Crash that has existed from the mainline games, the party games, and the racing games, and I'm going to take a look at his ass, and I'm going to decide which ones deserve you having a look at as well. So, without further ado, let's kick off, shall we? The first one we've got here is, of course, yes, the original, Crash Bandicoot 1's buttocks. Well, the thing you've got to consider with the original game's Crash model is that it was the first one. That's kind of a big reason as to why you got to give it a little bit of slack, because they were still trying to work out how to mould the perfect Bandicoot rear end, and so that's where we are at this point. This is still baby steps, really, for Naughty Dog trying to figure out what they wanted Crash's cavity to look like. So even though the model itself is a bit dopey by today's standards, I mean, he's bent over there. He looks pretty okay to me. Yeah, I mean, his body's a bit like a nacho chip going into a pair of jeans, but I can't really complain. It's pretty solid stuff, honestly. It is what it is, and it's early, so I'm going to be a little bit nicer to it. I'm going to give it an A. And this is where things get really interesting, because now we have moved on to Crash Bandicoot 2. Now, this image I got of Crash 2 really surprised me, because even though the quality of the games got much better game by game, Crash 2 is a fantastic platformer, and the model itself, the animations and the detail on the model is very good. The butt went down a little bit, I think, because if you look at this picture here, you can see I mean, what's going on there? It looks like Crash's body has been plonked on top of, like, a geomag. You know, it's so flat. It doesn't look like he's sitting on Polar as much as he is balancing like a seesaw. It is totally rigid. There isn't much going on there. So do you know what? For Crash 2, I'm going to go with a C tier. It's not the best Bandicoot tushy. Let's be honest about ourselves, people. Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Now, this is where things are a bit more interesting. As far as I'm aware, even though the model is kind of the same, there is a bit more detail going on. There's a few more animations, and of course there's more costumes. What does more costumes mean? It means that the devs had way more legroom to play around with the detailing and the accentuation of the creases. And that's what we've got here. We have got behind Crash view here, while sitting on his motorcycle, and it looks pretty sturdy stuff, to be honest. I can't really complain about it. It doesn't look as rigid as Crash Bandicoot 2's does. It looks comfortable, it looks nice and plump. So, it's still not great, let's be honest. It's still basically the same as Crash 2's model, but it's just got a little bit better in a place where he was able to have a little bit more animations and have more costumes and do more with that brilliant buttock of his. So let's put it in B. Moving on to the next rear flap of an anthropomorphic animal we have today, we have Crash Wrath of Cortex. Now, this is a pretty tricky one, I'm not gonna lie, because even though as a whole, Crash's model isn't perfect in Wrath of Cortex, especially for one generation jump to the next, it takes a bit of a downgrade in my opinion, and that image there, it kind of makes Crash's body look like a long stringy bit of spaghetti. It looks quite elastic and quite... it looks like Play-Doh. I don't know what they were doing with this animation frame, but you gotta admit, the bum is alright here. You know, where the body goes in, right at his waist there is a bit of a hip there. You know, even though he's stretched out lengthways, there is definitely a bit of distinction. You can see where the butt starts, which is something that the old models didn't do. They were pretty straight down into the legs, and there's a little bit of a curve there, and that's the first for Crash. I can't complain about a curve. The model as a whole, it looks pretty stringy, but for how stringy it looks, that is a nice perky butt, so I'm going to stick that in an A rank. But then this is where we get serious, because in the next game, which of course is Twinsanity, we got this. Now you tell me that the detailing of that crack there isn't sublime. Look at the level of care that was put into sculpting the derriere of the orange marsupial. Look at it. It's so defined, it's impressive. And I know that Twinsanity takes a more humorous look at a Crash game in the first place anyway, but I can't ignore this. This is definitely, it's not an S rank, because the hips kind of, they've gone. The hips from Wrath of Cortex, it doesn't stick out anymore. So it has gone back to the original kind of body that looks like a pizza slice going into the legs, and then there's jeans all of a sudden. But you can't unsee it, really, can you? Like, all I can do looking at that is picture it with the jeans not being there. And that's disgusting, and that's worthy of it being on an A rank, so there you go. But of course, sadly, as the mainline Crash games degraded in quality over the years, so too did the backsides, and that is where we come up to Crash of the Titans here. Now, at first glance, this doesn't look too bad. I know what you're thinking. I thought that, looking at the back end of Crash here, but then the more I looked at it, the more I realised it wasn't right. I'm not talking about the tattoos or anything, I'm talking about his fanny. Yeah, that's what you Americans call it. It's a fanny. The problem I have with it is that, well, first of all, if you're wearing jeans, the rear pockets usually, like, ideally they are on the cheeks, right? You can feel where the pockets are, and when you put things in your pockets, they're usually scraping the skin, you know what I mean? So looking at this image here, this suggests that Crash has two separate bums that are down each pant leg, and that's not right. So that's the first problem I have. Second problem I have is the belt. If your belt is wider than your waist and wider than your butt, you've got a bit of a problem. And because of that, no, I don't like it. The D rank butt for me. But the developers realised where they went wrong for the next game, Mind Over Mutant, because oh my god, what happened here? We ended up with this. Who likes short shorts? Crash does. I don't know what the devs were smoking when they came up with this one, but this is the most perfectly rounded haunch I have ever seen on a video game model, period. This is one of those times where I'm actually floored by it. Like, he's not wearing jeans anymore. He's proud of this fact, and he's just outright owning it. I gotta give him credit for that. But yeah, this is him doing a kicking pose, so maybe it's a bit unfair, but when you type in Crash Mind Over Mutant on Google, because I did not, believe it or not, I didn't search specifically for behind shots of Crash because you don't want to see what pops up on Google Images when you do that. But I did search for the game name specifically and saw if I could find a screenshot where they were facing away from the camera, and this is one of the first images that pops up, so you can see where the pride of the model makers went in with this game. I've never played the game before, but I can tell you, this makes me want to play it, doesn't it? Now we're on to the racing games. Now, there's a bit of a problem that we come into with the racing games. I'm sure you can imagine what it is right now. Yes, Karts don't have bums. We can't really see. This is the problem, right? This is the problem we're gonna have in all of the racing games, okay? Well, except for one, but we'll get to that in a bit. We'll cross that bridge when we'll come to it. That gluteus maximus can wait on the other end of the green. But here we are with Crash Team Racing. You can't say much about it, to be completely honest, because half of his back's covered. So maybe it looks great. Maybe he's hiding something very peachy in there. I don't know, but for now I can't see anything, so I'm putting it in D. And the same, unfortunately, goes for Nitro Kart here, but then I might have to stick it in C purely because the model's more detailed, so, you know, logically, you're gonna have a more detailed area. That's just the way it works. But then, oh boy, wait until you see this. We actually get to see it in Crash Tag Team Racing because there are platforming segments in that game, and here it is. I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be completely honest. I think it's a very safe middle ground, honestly. I think that is, as far as a glute goes, that's definitely in the middle, because the shapes there, it could be a little bit more sculpted. It's not as sculpted as the ones in A or S. Well, I mean, obviously, Crash 1's different case, because that was the first one. I can't go too harsh on it, but I'd say it was along the same lines as B, honestly. I can't really say much about it. I've got a different story, though, when it comes to the Crash Team Racing remake coming out later this year. Again, you can't see it. He's sitting in a car. I'm very aware of this, so just hear me out, alright? But Crash's face in this picture, he's shocked by it. He turns around, looks down, he's like, God damn, that's a great ass. And so it has to be A, because just by that facial expression alone, he's looking back there, he likes what he sees, he knows what he's got, and Crash barely knows anything. So when he knows what he's got, I have to trust him on that front. So there we go there. Okay, so to further answer the question that no one on planet Earth was ever asking, which Bandicoot butts are indeed the best, we are now moving on to the party games. Now, there's not too many of these, so that makes things a little bit easier. So here we have Crash Bash. You can definitely tell, just by looking at it right there, this is not a model from Naughty Dog on the PS1. The front end doesn't look too bad, but we're not talking about the front end, we're talking about the posterior. And I don't know, guys, this model is worse than the original game, like Crash Bandicoot 1. Like, it just is. Crash's hands look like the inside of a Battenberg cake, and there's no defining characteristic to this butt. Out of any of the others we've seen so far, it is dead goddamn straight. It's really bad. It's a D. Absolutely terrible. I don't know what they were thinking, and that is probably why Crash failed on the PS1 as soon as Crash Bash came out. And to be honest, it just goes from bad to worse, because here we have easily 100% the worst, absolute terrible suit I've ever seen on a character, period. Look at this guy. Look at this! The model designers for Crash Boom Bang, Crash Boom buggered it up. I don't know what is going on here. This is not only the ugliest Crash model, I mean, I haven't even got his face in there, because I can't insult you any more than I'm insulting you now by having this video exist in the first place, but this model here, so ugly, so hideous, so against what Crash is as a character, and just look at what goes on. He looks like a kite! There's nothing there. Like, there's absolutely nothing going on there. I don't want him sitting on my lap. It's so unimpressive. It doesn't stand out. It's a D. No question. And now we're moving on to the spin-offs and mobile games. Okay, so here we have, and I'm gonna lump them together because they are basically exactly, no, all three actually. They are all the same exact model. The GBA model, the Game Boy Advance model from The Huge Adventure, also known as Crash XS, Crash 2 Entranced, and Crash Purple. Now, it's basically, as far as I'm concerned, like a 16-bitted version of Crash 3's model. Like, when you look at the side-scrolling parts and everything, it does look very much just like a side-scrolling Crash Bandicoot PS1 part, but just on a Game Boy Advance. So not much to say about it, honestly. The problem is that the Game Boy Advance was limited in terms of animations and colours and detail, and in this picture here, this was the best image I could get of the back end of Crash for this particular video. It just looks like the entrance to Disneyland. It doesn't look like anything. I mean, even just looking at his legs with the butt included, it just looks like a pair of cowbells. It's very meh. I'm going to put it in C. It's not good enough to be middle. It's a C. It's a C class bottom. There we go. Now, this is a little bit of a cheat. I'm aware because I have decided to take from Skylanders, I think it's Imaginators here, Skylanders Imaginators. This is the 3D model that came with the game that you could place on the pad of magic and play as Crash in the exclusive Crash levels for that game. I think it was Imaginators anyway. I could be completely wrong. I don't really care about Skylanders. So this image was taken not from the game, but from the 3D model. So already there's going to be more shading and more natural light definition. You can see where the curves are, where the creases are, where it cuts in. You can see all of that stuff. You can see the wrinkles. It's so detailed. Problem is, Crash talks in that game.
I was on the Wampa Islands and about to free my friend Tawna from the clutches of the evil Dr. Neocortex.
And I suppose he talks because he has to make up for the fact that this tushy here is terrible. It's the same problem I have with the Crash of the Titans one. The belt looks bigger than it. The legs just attach to his body and then the body gets wider all of a sudden. So does that mean his butt starts at the bottom of his belt? So is it actually a right angular arse, or like, I don't understand. So it's not very good. It's a D class, absolutely. We then move over to... what was this one? I mean, this isn't scripted if you couldn't tell. I downloaded all of these in preparation for this video, and I don't know. This is from an iOS game. Was it like Crash Nitro Kart 3D on iOS? Which is dreadful. And again, I can't see the butt in this picture. Although, is that it there? What? Wait a sec, is it really long? Is it really wide? Or is that like the back of the seat of the car that just so happens to be exactly the same colour as Crash's body hair? Because if it is, that was a very terrible design choice. But if not, I'm going to assume that that is a perfectly square, cardboard, stiff, uncomfortable bot. So that is going in D. And then I was taken aback. This next one coming up took me by complete surprise. You'll see why. This is from a game that I hadn't heard of up until now called Crash Mutant Island. It was a Java game, so this is something that you probably would have played on an old Nokia phone. Actually, do you know what? Before I stick him in the tier list, probably would have played it on this thing here. Does this take anybody back? It's like a phone and a skateboard all in one. But yeah, sorry, back to this model now. This is from a mobile game. Yeah, so problem is that the detail is pretty low. It's very pixely. It's a bad quality image in the first place. But what surprises me is
the thickness of Crash's legs here.
I can't quite make out the shape of his bum, but oh my god, he definitely has been working them legs, and I can only assume that must mean that his butt looks pretty good because of it. The only problem is that could be just a really bad frame of animation, and he probably looks worse in the other game. I couldn't find many screenshots, so it's up in the air. It's up for debate. What do you think in the comments below? You join in with the discussion. He's going in a B for me. And another iOS game, we have Nitro Kart 2, I think this was. The game's terrible, but it's a bit more detailed than Nitro Kart 1's is. Like, I can actually see that he doesn't have a butt that's the same width of the back of his cart, so it's a bit better than that, but it's still not great. It's a C tier. Which then leads us on to the one that everyone has probably been waiting for, the one that everyone clicked on this video to find out. Don't pretend you didn't. We're using 2019 technology, 4K, PS4 Pro, now on Steam. It's the Insane Trilogy. And it's not actually that good. It doesn't look as defined as any of the ones in A or B or S, which is funny because of the amount of quality difference compared to each game, so I don't know what else to say. There's not as many angles to it.
Crash, when did you become a rigid Ronald?
It looks pretty flat, to be completely honest with you, and that's a massive shame because all the work clearly went into making the fur reflect light in terrible ways to make Crash look like some sort of ventriloquist dummy from hell. It's not terrible though, this is the thing. I'm gonna say B. If you would have asked me yesterday, oh Caddy, what are you working on for the next video? The last thing I would have replied to you would have been,
well, I'm just going to sit in front of my computer and make a tier list rating all of Crash Bandicoot's buttholes.
But there we go, it's here, so I hope you enjoyed it while we're here. This is possibly the worst video I've ever done in my life, and I thank you so much if you decided to sit through every single minute or second of it. That means more to me than I can tell you, and all of these people here, this delightful cast of rear ends, they can't thank you enough for it either. Welcome to Bandicoot Month 2019. I don't know how to end this, so I'm just gonna run away into a cave and hope that nobody finds me again. Subscribe. Hello again there everybody, and thank you so much for watching today's video. There will be outtakes, believe it or not, at the end of this video. Some stuff happened that I couldn't include, or I messed up on, you know, whatever. Even though it's unscripted, sometimes things can go wrong, so there's going to be outtakes. Stay tuned for that, because first, I'd love to thank every single member of my Patreon page right here on the screen scrolling. Thank you so much, guys. You have no idea how much your contributions mean to the channel. I'm sorry that videos like this can sometimes happen, but you know, we've got to have a bit of fun, especially with Bandicoot month. We've got to experiment, we've got to do some things, we've got to jump on some trends, we've got to break boundaries, take the walls down. This is what this video is about, so thank you so much. It means a lot to me. And before the outtakes come on today, special thank you to the top tier Patreon supporters for this month.
Basil, Cyberpunk Symphony, Dave Marshall, Crotchety Old Emu, Daniel Leon, Mitchell Reed, A.D. Thornton Smith, Fart Rules, The Mirthful Misanthrope, Yuja, I'm really sorry dude, I recognise you from the Discord, but I don't know how to say the name now that I think about it. Exopaz, Matthew Hubble, Matthew O'Donnell, TARDIS Type 40, Slowponk, Zachary Bourne, Ray Slocum, Luke Jones, Jurgen Peikoff, Joey Crew, Jezebel, The Game Shed, Nick Picker 01 on YouTube, Joshua Roberts, Chris NSF 92, I'm really sorry dude, I'd love to say your username, but I think I would get demonetized just from that alone. And Alex Van Kirk, thank you so much every single one of you amazing people.
Looking at this image that I managed to find of it, well, oh my, I'm sorry. This is from a game called Mutant... Oh, you are kidding. I've been recording for half an hour, I just realised I wasn't recording anything on the screen. Crash 2 Entranced and Ripto's Rampage... No. Ball! By the way, this isn't tea, this is... it's water. Eat it! Eat it! Eat it! Eat it! God, well, I suppose you can say that after all of that, I'm a bit wet after talking about Crash's butts, so... No, I can't use that.